Hey everyone, Rosie here. Before we get started with this episode, we just want to send a big thank you to our partner, Arabica Co. for their support of the show. They're a convenient subscription service offering specialty grade, single source, 100% Arabica coffee available in whole bean and drip grind. Check out grindcoffeeco.com.
I'm Ethan from Grind Hard Plumbing Co., and you're listening to the Builder Sessions podcast.
Welcome to the Builder Sessions, a podcast where we chat with your favorite builders.
We get to know them, their stories, and hopefully inspire you to get off the couch and build something cool. I'm Hoff.
And I'm Rosie. And on this episode, we chat with Ethan from Grind Hard Plumbing Co. We talk about his backstory and the various trades that have helped shape him into the well-rounded builder he is, the origin of their YouTube channel, and we get some insight into the various builds we've seen on YouTube.
Please enjoy our interview with Ethan.
Ethan, welcome to the Builder Sessions.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on. This is really cool. I'm really excited. Fangirling a little bit.
Thanks.
Hoff's just over there giggling. You can't see him. But he's just like, I had to mute him because he was like giggling a little bit. That's fine.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah,
we're so glad. So for anyone listening who's been living under a rock for a number of years and they don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Ethan Schlussler. I'm the half of Grind Hard Plumbing Co. YouTube channel. I'm the mechanical fabrication half of it. My business partner, Edwin, does all the video end of it. We've been a YouTube channel for about 5 years. We build the weirdest stuff you can imagine. That's kind of the best way to sum it up. It's intentionally bizarre vehicles that are usually too fast for comfort.
And the fun level's got to be up there too, it looks like, hey?
Yeah, of course.
It looks like you guys have a ton of fun. So let's rewind.
Yeah, we do.
Let's rewind. How did you, was there like, how did Ethan get started or catch the bug as far as automotives or fabrication, or how did this all start for you?
I mean, I don't know if I so much caught the bug. I think I was probably born with it.
Okay.
I don't remember a time as a child when I wasn't interested in cars and how things worked and that kind of stuff. But as far as like actually beginning to learn about it and have exposure to it, my dad worked on our cars somewhat when I was a kid. So there was a little bit there, doing brakes and whatever, stuff like that. So I had a little bit of that. But really it started when I was, when I moved here to Idaho, where I live now. One of the neighbors was friends with my dad, and he had a fabrication shop. And he did all sorts of other stuff too. He does construction and a bit of everything, but I used to go up there and just hang out at the shop and watch stuff happen. And from the time I was about, probably 9 or so. I mean, when obviously it was very infrequent at that point.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
By the time I was like 11 or 12, I was hanging out there a lot more. And I think he first taught me how to weld when I was around that age, 11 or 12. And so that was the beginning of learning that, you can build anything if you have the right tools and just seeing all of that stuff happen. And then, I worked a ton of different jobs over the years, and some of them added to that skill set and, mechanics and construction and all of that sort of stuff. I never did a meaningful amount of fabrication as a job before starting the YouTube channel. I did some here and there, but it was mostly more, construction, framing, landscaping when I was younger, like all that kind of stuff.
So you're really involved in the trades and hands-on work from a very young age then, and watching that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've always liked working. Like, as a kid, I would work for fun. There's a funny story I like to tell where in I think third grade, I went to a friend's birthday party and they had one of those lawnmowers that you push that doesn't have a motor. It just has a little reel. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I'd been to his house once before, but at the birthday party, I don't remember. I guess I got bored with what everybody else was doing. And I was like, can I go mow the lawn? So I was just out there like just mowing the lawn for fun while everybody else was, inside, I don't know, whatever they were doing.
As one does.
Yeah, as one does. Exactly.
Yeah. These
so,
video games suck. Can I go mow that lawn? It's looking a little long out there. It's amazing. Oh, did you have any influences growing up as far as other than the guys in the shops that you hung out with and your father? Like, were there like a shop teacher, or was there like I don't know, someone you saw on TV, or like any outside influences outside of your sphere, I guess?
Yeah. I went to, as far as like a shop teacher or anything like that, I didn't never really have that. I mean, there was, sort of equivalent of a wood shop teacher, I guess. So that was somewhat of an inspiration, but in a different direction for woodworking and stuff, which I've done a bunch of that too. But, other than that, I mean, I didn't grow up with a lot of TV, although I did, really, enjoy Junkyard Wars.
Yes.
And I think for anybody who watches the channel, that's really not that much of a surprise because, like, my house, my property is kind of
is Junkyard Wars.
It's Junkyard Wars. Like every time I'm building something, I'm like, I need a radiator, and I don't well, sometimes I order it, but usually I'll go wander around and look at the piles of parts and try to find something that works.
That sounds like a lot of people's dream.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Do you find kind of dabbling into a whole bunch of different trades and things have helped you succeed kind of as you go through life in this adventure with Grind Hard and everything like that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, going into it with a very informal education in a whole bunch of things, sometimes I feel like it allows me to think about problems from a totally different way, like use tools that are meant for construction, for fabrication, or, I have a lot more different ways to think about a problem because I've done so many different, different trades. So yeah, I mean, I think it can definitely be an advantage, or a disadvantage if try to figure out which one of the 100 different ways to do something. But,
almost like an unorthodox way of solving a problem because you've got this huge box of skill sets that you can kind of draw from.
Exactly. Yeah. Think outside the box, sort of, that sort of idea.
Did you always have that kind of confidence? Because I know, for me, and my skill set isn't as broad and as like sharpened as yours by any stretch, but I have dabbled in, automotives, and I've dabbled in welding and fabrication and auto body and like that kind of area. And I know when I'm faced with, like, let's say someone asks me to do something for them or whatever, it's easy to slip into that imposter syndrome where it's like, well, I don't have like my ticket, or I've only, you sell yourself short. Has that ever been kind of an issue for you, or have you always been like, you know what, let's just do this?
I think I've always been, a little bit more on the confident side, but definitely not 100%. I think it helped, like, the people that I grew up with, like the guy at the shop, who taught me how to weld. Like he's somebody who just is like, yeah, I can do anything, and so having that as an influence definitely helped. And I mean, of course, I didn't start out with 100% confidence, as a child, I had a history of taking things apart and not putting them back together again. So when I got into like more expensive and consequential projects,
that's a good word. Yeah.
I definitely had, and I still sometimes do even have a moment of stress where, like, I take everything apart and I'm like, am I going to remember where all the parts go? Which I kind of laugh at it now because I build something almost entirely from scratch. And then, like, I take it apart to paint and finish and, weld everything. And I have that moment where I go, oh no, what if I don't know how to put it back together? Like, it's absurd. I built it. If I could figure out how to build it, I could probably put it back together.
I ran out of Ziploc bags.
There's no manual for this build, or what?
Yeah. I joke about that too. Like, people have given me crap for, like, not using a torque wrench. So as I'm tightening stuff, I take just the impact gun and I go, torque to factory specifications.
Done.
Because I'm the factory.
Yeah. That's the specification that I want.
Yeah, exactly. The specification is 2 Uggas and a Dugga.
Exactly.
I like that.
That needs to happen more.
Yeah.
We need more Ugga Duggas in our life, 100%.
Yep. Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. Unless, you shear off something, but whatever.
Right. Yeah.
That's a different story.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, back to the question about, the confidence thing. I mean, I don't think anyone is, no matter how confident they may seem, is ever 100%. There's even, I still start projects and go, oh no, am I going to be able to do this? So fair bit of confidence, but nobody has 100%.
Yeah.
I'm sure being around people who are confident in just, let's do this, right? Like some people, they talk about, you're what is it? The collective of the 5 people you hang around with.
Yeah.
So when you're around people who are, even if they don't have 100% confidence, if they're under the mindset of, and a lot of people we talk to, like, you just got to do it. Sometimes for myself, I get too worked up on looking up manual stuff and, but then you get so overconsumed on, what if I make a mistake? If you just do it and you're around people who are like-minded like that, it kind of almost takes that imposter syndrome away naturally, maybe, and just, right, if we get to something and we screw up, we'll fix it or we'll make it work. So you kind of got to be on the ball or on your toes, just winging it sometimes, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of a strategy that I use when I'm, trying to solve a particularly complex problem with a build. I'll sit there for a while and I'll think about it and, do I want to do it this way or that way? Or, and if I get to a point where I'm not getting anything done, and I'll just pick a tiny portion of it that I know what I'm going to do and just start doing that. And then, the rest of it will sort of figure itself out as I go, rather than try to solve all the problems all at once. You just kind of pick the smallest one and go from there.
Yeah. Now, speaking of builds, you've created some amazing jet boats, the bikes with the snow trucks. What's the process of a build? Does it start as an idea, shooting the shit with people, and how does the process work for that on a build?
Well, you mentioned the jet boat. I actually just was working on that right before I came in for this. So,
cool.
But anyway, I mean, usually most of them just start as an idea in my head. Some of them we've come up with sort of hanging out and talking about different things. Other ones are also just parts that are laying around. They're left over from something else. And, I'll just kind of think about what we could do with them and then, how they would fit together into something new. But, of course, YouTube has been a full-time job for, 5 years now. And so there is definitely a lot of thought put into what's going to be the most entertaining thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of things are things we want to build because they're fun, and they are, inevitably all of them are fun, but there's definitely an element of what makes a project interesting for other people to watch, and what makes a good title, thumbnail, all of those factors. There's always all of those are considered when we start a new project, for sure.
And then is there CAD drawings? Is it on a notepad? Is it just in your head and you're like, hey, we need to do this? I'm sure, because you build some really cool stuff, and I'm just always curious on how people, do you just start welding and making, and we need to, grind this off or cut it and fix it? Can you kind of elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of it is just figured out as I go. The original Barbie Jeep that I built, I sketched out a few ideas on some paper, just very roughly, to kind of, have a visual aid. But that very, very little, physical or tangible design goes. It's mostly in my head. I mean, I do use CAD now because I have a CNC plasma table. But I only use that for parts, and in most cases, the part is designed in my head before it's done in CAD. Roughly, I have an idea of what I'm gonna, so. There's never been a drawing for anything more complex than an AR in terms of an actual, computer rendering or drawing or blueprints or any of that. It's just kind of, like I was saying earlier, just pick one little problem and then just solve them as they come.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Shoot from the
Not
hip.
even a piece of cardboard, like it's all up here.
Well, I mean, sometimes cardboard. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
use cardboard as a template for stuff.
Yeah.
But
But like your overall
but that's-
design is just kind of in
lives
your
in the head.
Oh, that's the
sweet.
best
Yeah.
place for them too, right? Because nobody can
Well,
see your.
yeah, I mean, nobody can steal them, but I can lose them.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
No
files
kidding.
can get corrupted. you know?
Yeah. I got a lot of those files up
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Right.
So do you have any, you mentioned having some experience in a ton of different trades. Do you have any formal training? Have you gone to any, even outside of the trades? Like what was your like education post-secondary? What was that like?
Yeah. Well, so I went to a private school that my mom taught from like kindergarten through 6th grade. After that, I was very, very loosely homeschooled for a couple of years. And then when I would have been in high school, I was working, doing construction. I didn't really do any sort of academic stuff at all for a few years. And then I took the GED when I was, I don't know, 17 or something. And then at that time, I didn't really have any plans to go to college. But then when I was about 19, I decided to go to college. I went to a local community college for 2.5 years, whatever, but a 2-year degree, associate's degree. And that was in photography. So
cool.
Very, very unrelated to what people see me do,
Yeah.
but related to the process of seeing it. So,
Of course. Yeah. And that probably helps you out when you're thinking about your builds or you're doing the process, and you can probably contribute to that, the audiovisual side of things too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I rarely hold a camera these days, but I do. I mean, aside from like setting up GoPros for time lapses and stuff, I'm rarely behind the camera. But having a good concept of how all of that works is definitely very helpful, because it's always in the back of my mind when I'm building stuff. What is it going to look like on camera, like while it's happening, and arranging all the stuff so that it's visible to the camera and looks interesting, and just different angles and all of that kind of stuff is always there as well. And it definitely makes things easier. And also the understanding that is important, because some people who really love building stuff just don't have any interest or understanding of how cameras or the filming side of things. And that would be probably rather frustrating for my business partner Edwin if I was just like, what? We don't need to film it. I just want to get it done.
Yeah.
Probably lots of planning for that too, right? Like you were saying, you could be a really good builder and not have the understanding of, frames and different things. And you could probably, I wouldn't say ruin, but it could potentially be a detriment to your final product if you're not catching those, scenes or whatever. You have that understanding to put everything. It's not just building, it's the filming and video and audio. Like there's so much that goes into what you do. You need people to help and be involved with that, right?
For sure. Yeah. And like, even we have our friend films for us now. He's our camera guy, and he like he's in the shop pretty much every day with me filming, but having a better understanding of it personally. And I mean, part of it's just practice, because now I've been doing it for 5 years, but it helps to have had that before that. Just be like, hey, this is going to be to film, because he's not going to know that something's going to happen until it happens, but I know what I'm going to do ahead of time. So being able to be like, hey, can you grab the camera and come film this, that kind of stuff, which it's always better to have them turn the camera on before you say something rather than say it twice.
So where were you before the channel started? And then what was, where did you just come up with the idea, hey, I want to do that. Let's get, or was there like a YouTube channel that you're like, that's pretty cool, I could do something like that? Like, what was the story of the start of the channel?
So before the channel, I was just doing construction. I'd been recently doing framing on a framing crew, and then I'd quit that and moved a little bit, and then I was just doing stuff freelance, basically building sheds and remodels and little stuff around. There's no shortage of that kind of work around here, but so that's what I was doing. And then I had dabbled in YouTube on my own before that. I built a tree house that I made a really basic little video of that, and then that went viral. And so I built, I made some more videos, and I'd always been interested in video. So I had made a few little videos on my own, and then, but really the impetus for Grind Hard came from Edwin, my business partner. He at the time was hanging out with his ex-brother-in-law, and the brother-in-law was into drift cars, and Edwin hadn't really been into cars before that. He was into like dirt bikes and that kind of stuff, and but hadn't gotten into cars. And then he saw drifting and was like, wow, this seems like a lot of fun, but it's really expensive. And he's obviously has the background in video editing and all of that stuff. So his idea for how to pay for drift cars, because he wanted to get into that, was start a YouTube channel, build cars, and then you can use the channel to fund your drifting habit, basically.
Yeah.
Obviously that never happened. We clearly are not a drifting channel, but that was the concept behind it. And then so he kind of loosely started Grind Hard as a channel. He didn't post anything, but had the concept and the name. And then his idea for the first video was the original Barbie car. It was to take a Barbie Power Wheels and put an engine in it somehow or other. And so I was the person that he knew who had the welding skills and equipment and stuff to make that possible. So he just kind of started asking me for ideas. He's like, hey, so what if I did this, or what if I did that? And I just happened to be at a point in my life where I wanted something to focus on. I was in the process of getting divorced, and I really needed something exciting to do. So I was like, hey, bring it over. Let's just have some fun with it. We'll, mess around. I'll help you build it. And then, so that's exactly what happened. And then, and the first project was a success. So we kept going with it.
Huh. Where does the plumbing come into play?
So the Grind Hard portion of the name is from the brother-in-law that Edwin was hanging out with. He had that tattoo. He had a tattoo that said Grind Hard, and I don't know the story behind the tattoo, but they were joking around, I guess, and we're like, oh, we should call our drift team Grind Hard because like it's a lot of work and the cars are low, they grind on the ground. I wasn't there for the conversation, but that's the story that Edwin always tells. Yeah. And then Edwin just thought it'd be really funny to call it a plumbing company just to confuse people, basically, to be like, why are these drifters a plumbing company? So yeah,
I love that.
It's just a silly name to be a silly name, basically.
That's sweet. Because when I first stumbled upon you guys, this is a number of years ago now, I was like, oh, cool. It's like a couple of guys who have a plumbing company who are just doing YouTube videos.
This on the side.
Yeah, that's what everybody assumes. I mean, that it's a fairly logical assumption, but that's definitely not the case. I have done a small amount of plumbing in my life, but not an actual plumber.
So what has been like some of the cool benefits or some of the cool experiences you've got to have because of the channel, right? Because you have a ton of subscribers, and like I'm sure there's a ton of opportunity for you. What are some of the really cool things you've got to do?
I mean, obviously not counting all the builds themselves, because that's the obvious part.
Yeah.
But I think probably one of the biggest is just the people that we've got to meet around the country. You just had Josh from Vague Industries, Death Wish, Grind Coffee, whatever, all of his endeavors.
All the things,
you just had him on the podcast, and he's here at my house right now, but he's an example of somebody that I would never have otherwise met. But yeah, just really just the other builders around the country, and even in other YouTubers in slightly different categories, or owners of businesses that we've done ads for, just all the people. And I mean the traveling as well, but the people that you meet has been one of the coolest things for me. Like we have the CNC plasma cutter that we have is a little tiny unit like this big. It's called an Arc Droid.
Yeah.
So the guy that invented that, like, it's just all his company is kind of a one-man show. I mean, not literally one-man show. Obviously, he has employees and people building them and stuff. But anyway, he's a really cool dude, and he came out to visit last summer, and it started because he wanted us to help him promote the Arc Droid, and so he sent us one. But just that's a friendship that I made with somebody who's inventing plasma robots, and he does rally racing, and like just a really interesting person that it's a really cool connection, and it's been fun to meet people like that.
Do you find after you build, or after you're finished to build and you go play with it and have fun, is there a community around that too? Is it just your select group of builders that go take it out? Because I see you're always out having fun with your builds, and like is that, do you cherish that part when everything's done? You can go rip out in the little jet boat or go take it with the snow bike or whatever. Like, do you cherish those times after you're done the build? It's kind of like, oh, we did it, we're done. Yeah,
I mean, it's always kind of it's always a very exciting time when you go out and test drive it. It's definitely a small portion of the time. Most of the time is spent building, and with the sheer number of things we've built over the years, I mean, there's not enough time in a day to ride them all. So but yeah, it's always a really exciting time, but it's pretty much just us that film and are part of Grind Hard when we go out. I mean, sometimes we'll have another friend there with another vehicle for backup or whatever. That's something that would be fun to do more of that, but it's hard to find the time, and we always end up breaking stuff because we test it thoroughly.
Torque to specification, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, do you keep all of your builds when you're done?
Pretty much, yeah. We've gotten rid of a couple ones, but basically we've kept most of them. And there's a number of reasons for that. I mean, obviously sentimental value and keeping things around for future videos. Usually once a project's done, there's only a couple of videos you can make with it, but then sometimes a year later we'll have an idea to do something different with it or combine it with another project. So that's a reason. Another reason is, they're often broken. So selling them would be complicated. And then of course there's the fact that they're all just so completely custom that if you sell it to somebody and they break something, like there's it's not just like a four-wheeler you can go online and buy a new part for it. They'd be kind of screwed unless they have the money to pay somebody to build a custom part or know how to themselves. And then obviously on top of that, the liability of extremely dangerous machines, and not wanting to be responsible for other people's bodily harm.
Seriously, is there as far as the builds go, it almost seems like those builds take on like a persona of their own and become like I don't know what other word to use other than, like a character in the channel. Has that been kind of your experience with some of these?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of them, the more popular ones, will come up with, they'll have names that are kind of sometimes just a spin-off of what they actually are. But the Barbie Jeep, we call it Cinderella, like Cinderella, but Send, which got shortened to Sendy over the years. And then the big, it used to be green, now it's blue, four-wheel drive Power Wheels, because it was sort of an army green, and because it's like ridiculously overkill and loud and stuff, we call it Colonel Senders.
Colonel Senders, I love it.
Colonel Senders, yeah. So yeah, they definitely do take on sort of a persona and become a character on the show. Certainly the more popular ones, because there's some that really we haven't done a lot with after they've been finished, and unfortunately a lot of that is determined by how many people watch it. I mean, what we do is fun, but it's not only for fun. So, if a project stops getting attention, then we stop making videos on it because it's, doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah. I was just going to ask that, like, that's probably a tough balance to make. Like if you have a build that you really want to do and you're excited for, and then it's like might not be the best for the channel. Like, how do you, what's that process like with your partners and reconciling that?
Yeah.
And like, okay, well, maybe I'll just do it on my own because I still think it's really cool. Like, what's that like?
There's definitely some of that. I mean, some of the projects have definitely been more personal than others. Ones that I personally thought were really cool. At this point, in terms of, I mean, yeah, there's always projects that I think would be fun to do that I know are not a fit for our channel. And at this point, I have enough building and automotive excitement in my life that I just kind of go, I don't need to do that.
Put it to the side.
Yeah, I don't. If it's not something that's going to be for the channel, I'm just gonna like, well, it's okay.
Yeah.
I have plenty of projects. I don't need to do that one, even though I think it'd be cool.
Yeah. Your
but I
cup's
mean,
your
you
cup's
know,
full either way, right? Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly. So, yeah, so there's, yeah, and we've tried to do some that we thought were really cool and then didn't pan out to be something that people were all that interested in. So we just kind of did, a few episodes and then kind of, finished it up and didn't do much more with it or whatever. But we've been, mostly we've had pretty good luck in terms of people staying interested in the builds we choose. And like I was saying earlier, that's, that is kind of one of the primary factors in deciding what to build next, is just what do we think would be interesting. And I don't know, obviously I like just building weird stuff. And for me, building something that no one has ever built before, or in a way that no one's ever built it, is what keeps me interested in it, which works out well because it's also what keeps the audience interested. Like, if we were building hot rods, I mean, hot rods are awesome, but like I would get really bored just building hot rod after hot rod after hot rod, because it's there's a lot of old Chargers being built out there, and old Camaros or whatever, right? Like they're still just as cool as a if it's your personal project. But for me, I like the things that are really bizarre and the challenge of doing something unique.
It's really interesting you said that about the Chargers, because remember there's Dukes of Hazzard, there's always, they're like, oh, they wrecked like all of them and they're super rare, and then all of a sudden you're seeing all these people finding these old dilapidated Chargers in barns, and it's like, did they, what are they rare?
Yeah, right. I mean, they made hundreds of thousands of them. Like, how many could they really have wrecked for the movie?
Like
1,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh man.
So, yeah.
And then that makes it's just like supply and demand, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So how, like, I'm sure different builds have different time frames and lengths. How long would it take for, typical, or have some of your projects taken from idea in the brain to test driving and having fun?
I mean, anywhere from like a couple of weeks for, say, the snow bike, the Hayabusa snow bike you mentioned earlier. That one, obviously, it's a simpler project. The snow bike kit already exists. You just have to make it work with the Hayabusa, which is still plenty of things to figure out. But that one was like a week or two of building to from start to testing. Other ones have been, I mean, off and on, of course, but other projects have been over a year from start to finish, because you get sidetracked or whatever. But in terms of one that I worked on very consistently, pretty much from start to finish, was the one I mentioned before, Colonel Senders. It's 4-wheel drive, Power Wheels body with 4-wheel drive and a 1,000cc V twin and reverse and power steering and everything else. So, and 12 inches of suspension travel, like
optional
that one,
sunroof.
Yeah, exactly. No, the sunroof is not an option. It's just
it's
there.
just there. Yeah.
Yeah. But that one was a little earlier on in the channel. We had less distractions, I guess. But that one was more or less nonstop for, I don't know, 6 months or something like that. Because that one was more consistent, I had a rough estimate of like how many days I put into it, and I think something like 600 hours of fabrication time into it. I mean, roughly, of course, but yeah.
And do you typically work on one project until it's complete and then start another one, or do you, depending on what you're doing with the channel and the builds and stuff, or do you kind of manage a few different projects at the same time?
It's usually a lot of projects going at the same time. For many different reasons. I mean, sometimes we'll have a specific brand, integration that wants a specific build, or we have to do a specific type of thing to make it fit into the video. So then we'll jump around and be like, I'll be working on one, and then we'll be like, oh, we need to do some little bit on this one and then take it out here and do that. Other times it'll be like, we'll be waiting on parts, or sometimes even I'll be in the middle of a project, and we're kind of not at a point where the next video is complete. I've only done, maybe there's another week to go to finish it, or to finish the step for that video to be complete. And then we'll be like, well, shoot, we need a video for this week. So what can we do that takes a lot less time to finish the video? So there's a lot of that, just like jumping around and back and forth, and it's fairly chaotic, but
Does that get frustrating at all, going back and forth, instead of being able to, like, the projects you have been able to just focus on till completion?
Definitely. I mean, sometimes I also get bored with a project, and so the jumping around works, because then I'll get re-inspired later to go back to it. But like, what's the worst for me is when I have to switch gears on what project I'm working on, like halfway through the day. It takes me like hours to get re-motivated after I switch. Like, say I'll get something done and then be waiting on parts, and I'm like, well, I'm not just going to sit here for the rest of the day, so I'll switch to the next project. And that it's so hard to get I don't know, something about my brain, I can't like refocus from one project to the next. So yeah, it can be frustrating, but also it
refreshing at the same time too, being able to have all the different types
sometimes,
of work. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It'll be a lot. We're in the process of building a new shop right now, which is about 4.5 times the size of the current one, which will help a lot, because part of the problem with switching projects is you have to like rearrange everything to get the project into the shop. It was just a 20-foot by 20-foot shed, basically. So not a lot of extra space.
That was one of the things I'm really inspired by your channel, other than like, besides the obvious, the fabrication work and the just like the fun and excitement of it, was the fact that you were working in a pretty humble space, and you were working with what you had, and you made the best out of what you had. And and you've had that space for the channel was successful probably way longer than people. Well, sorry, you've been working in that space way longer than that channel's been successful. And then when the channel became successful, you still stayed in there for a number. And now you're building out of necessity, I'm sure. But that's so inspiring to people.
That you don't need a huge brand new shop to be able to, start tinkering and building.
I'm sure it's easy for people to be like, oh, just speaking for myself, one of my other buddies has a 3-car garage that he built in his backyard. And I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool. I could do this and this and this and this. But I have a single detached in my backyard. It's like, why can't I just make the best out of that? I could have nothing. How did you how did you become okay with that? Or is just your personality, or were you just like, you know what, let's just do the best with what we have and go for it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of, you get used to it, for one. I mean, just kind of, oh, well, it worked for this. And also, like, when we when we did the first project, there was just no space at all. Like, the shop was full of other stuff and tools, and like, it wasn't really intending on it being a space to build stuff like that. And so over the years, I keep like moving and rearranging and making a little bit more space. And but yeah, I mean, obviously, aside from the expense of building a new shop, it was just kind of I mean, part of it is that I started the process to build a new shop 2 years ago. I ordered a steel structure kit, and it took 2 years to get made and shipped. So that's a pretty significant chunk of the delay. I mean, it was,
fair enough.
there's that as well. So, it was kind of just, a combination of like, just, I mean, you can make it work. I know that a lot of people are inspired by that. And I think, and that's great. I'm always happy when I inspire people. And it's true. You don't need the best shop to build things. I mean, last year, we built that gigantic Bronco with, we did part of the build, but we put, axles and 42 or 43-inch tires and, military axles under it. And we did that in my driveway. It didn't fit in the shop. So we jacked it up and put it on giant metal sawhorses in the driveway, and built it in the rain in the driveway in 11 days. So like, you don't need a giant shop to build cool stuff. It helps. It's nice, and when you can afford it and you have the space, it's great. And that's what we're doing now is, expanding so that we have better working conditions and more room to build bigger projects, better projects and all of that. But yeah, so, and then, like I said, part of it was just waiting around to get the shop.
Yeah. COVID probably put a hamper or a damper on your plans.
Yeah, right. I mean, I started talking to the steel structure company sometime, I guess it would have been kind of like, well, I guess it was 2 years ago. That'd be 2020, 2021. So yeah, at the time they were like, oh yeah, we're a little behind because of COVID. It'll be about 6 months. And I was like, well, that's, not great, but we can work with it. And then it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we should have it at least mostly done before winter. So we'll be able to move into it before winter,
cool.
which is the big thing because winters are, well, you guys are in Canada, right? So,
yeah, we get it. We get it. Yeah.
you get it. Yeah.
Is it hard working on the new shop plus still pumping out your content, your builds? Like how's the balance on that?
Yeah, it hasn't been too bad because we are making videos on the shop. So it is,
okay, yeah.
Or videos about doing it. So that, of course, it takes, being such an enormous physical project, it takes a lot longer to get like a, visually significant portion of work done. So it takes more than just a week to get a whole video on the shop. But so yeah, there's a little bit of back and forth of like today I was working on the jet boat. Tomorrow I'll be working on the shop. But it helps that we have Will, the other guy that works here with us. He's still learning. He's about a decade younger than me, and so he's just getting into fabrication, and so but the point is that he's able to do some projects as well that make videos, and so that helps a lot because he's not putting out a video every week either, but combined in terms of building content. And so combined though between me working on the shop and other stuff, we're able to still stay on top of it, even though I'm devoting a lot of energy to the new shop.
What would be, if you were pressed, what would be your favorite build out of all of them?
Yeah, I don't really have to be pressed. It's been pretty clear for a long time, and it's the kernel senders, as we call it. It, for a lot of reasons, partly it's one of the most fun to drive, but also it has to do with a lot of other factors, like the time at which I built it. Like it was, I built a few projects on the channel before that were fairly complex. The Barbie Jeep, and then after that we did a Camaro Power Wheels and a bunch of other non-Power Wheels projects in between. But that one, like, I went, I don't know, 3 or 4 levels of complexity and, difficulty up in that build. And then just took, I devoted a lot more time and energy to it. And the result was, a lot better than I could have ever expected. And so it was just now I could build that again and it wouldn't mean as much to me because I've already had those skills for a few years now, but at the time it really pushed my skills, and then the result just is incredibly good for what it is. Like I always tell people, it's a bunch of parts that shouldn't work at all together in a space that shouldn't be possible, and it works like ridiculously well, not just for what it is, but period.
It's a feather in your cap, right? Exactly. You're really proud of it. Yeah, you should be.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So it's my favorite because it's one of the most fun to drive, but also because I'm proud of the work that I put into it and all of that. And but that said, that one's my favorite, but there are others that are very close. Mm-hmm. The jet boat is, in terms of pure fun, the jet boat's really hard to beat. It's just ridiculous and silly, and yeah.
That's cool. Seems really snappy. Like it just so responsive.
Yeah, just yeah. It's somewhere between 80 and 100 horsepower in, I don't know, something that weighs 250 pounds in the water. Yeah. It's very, very quick.
What would you say is your you've you have all these skills, and you're building the shop, and you're welding, and you're fabricating, and you have construction experience, and all the. If you had to pick a favorite skill set or a favorite or something like a process you like doing the most out of them, whether that's like timber framing or TIG welding or whatever it is, what would you pick?
Sure. That one's a tough one because like despite the fact that I just told you about what build is my favorite, I tend to like most of my life I haven't really been a person of favorites. I get bored with things pretty quickly, and not necessarily to the extent of not enjoying it, but just like losing that level of excitement, just like what's next. So as far as a skill, it's kind of somewhat it's whichever one I'm not currently doing, but but that said, I think that it really is just the hardcore fabricating and welding and stuff, that whole process of just taking raw metal chunks and turning it into something functional, so it's more than one process, I guess. It's the design and welding and all of that. But I really enjoy TIG welding. It's just kind of especially when you're doing it for like an entire day straight, you'd almost like hypnotize yourself. And
it's really relaxing, especially like it's quiet and it's just it's clean.
Exactly.
Like it's pretty cool.
It's like an art almost, hey?
It totally is.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, I mean, aluminum TIG is not that quiet because you have the buzz of the AC arc, but like, DC TIG is just, it's very quiet and peaceful. Whereas, I mean, MIG welding is just loud and
it's chaos,
stressful, and there's getting burned by stuff all over the place. So
compared to then there's stick too, and it's like you got to be covered up pretty good, and smoke everywhere. I feel like stick's like the 80s like country bar where everyone's smoking. And everyone's got a smoke in there. There's like a haze. You walk in, and and then TIG's like the elegant, like modern,
vaping
restaurant. Everyone's vaping.
Oh no.
So being on, having your property and having shop and these toys and these builds, how do you stay focused on your work living in like this playground? As I would look at, after watching your videos, it seems like a big playground that you have. Is it easy to get distracted from the work, or does it help you like fully engulf into the work?
I don't think it's particularly a factor for me, like getting distracted by the projects. I think part of it is what I was talking about earlier with like, I kind of get bored with things fairly easily. So like all of the projects that we've built, I've driven them around the property enough that it's not really a distraction because I've done it. If I was taking them somewhere new and going on an adventure, absolutely. But so there's that. And I don't know. I think I just tend to be pretty focused when I'm working on, whatever I'm working on. I want to get it done and make it the best it can be. So, but it's not particularly distracting for me, although I imagine it would be for most people who just, if you just transplanted somebody who is into this kind of stuff, transplanted them here and said, okay, now sit in the shop and weld all day. They'd be like, no, I can't.
Come on.
So many things to see.
There's a freaking zip line outside. That's what we talked to Josh. He's like, sorry, I just got back from outside. I was sitting in the Zoom or the Google Meet, and you weren't here yet, so I went and
he's out of breath.
I went and jumped on the zip line, and then I just got back.
Is that whole environment kind of calming for you? I think of I'm a lake person, and as soon as I get to the lake, my stressors reduce. I'm relaxed. Does your whole property and shop and stuff, does that just kind of get you focused or help with it?
Some of it does. Certainly being out in the woods, the sound of the creek running down at the bottom of the property and like the view out of the house, looking out at all the trees and stuff, that kind of stuff is, definitely. That's why I live here, is because that's what, keeps me calm and focused and stuff. That said, the like chaos of the junkyard part, like if it's not all organized, that kind of stresses me out and distracted. I'm not the most organized person ever, but pure chaos is too much.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that part can be a little stressful, but the rest of it's very relaxing.
You should host a Junkyard Wars when you get your shop. You should invite
Yeah.
a couple of your YouTube buddies up and do a Junkyard Wars build.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about that, like something like that a few times, but at this point, our junkyard is getting to be enough that we could actually just do that. Be like, okay, aside from hardware, you can't buy anything.
Yeah.
You have to build a vehicle out of what's here.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
so
that would
cool.
be pretty cool.
That'd
Wood
be sweet.
wheels. Hey?
Yeah, everything.
Wooden wheels, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't even. You could, but you wouldn't have to. We have
You got
wheels
enough of
and
those?
tires all over the place. Yeah. I mean, you might end up with like a 12-inch go-kart wheel on the front and like a 40-inch off-road tire on the back, but
The rake's
that's
gonna
what
look
would-
good, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about that
Yeah.
rake.
Yeah.
So as we
Yeah.
kind of start wrapping up here a little bit,
Yeah.
what's some advice you'd have for somebody, let's say in like the welding fabrication area, for some general advice you'd have for someone who wants to get into this trade, get into this area?
I mean, obviously, if you know someone who does it that's willing to let you even just watch, just be around it. That's how I got into it, was just hanging out in a shop where that kind of stuff happens. But that's not necessarily available to everyone. I can't personally talk at all about what a formal education in any of these trades looks like, because I don't have one. I'm sure that's also a good option, but I can't recommend it or not because I zero context. But I mean, aside from that, like we were talking about earlier, really just like start doing something, like if you could, if you know someone who will let you borrow a welder, or just even buy the cheapest one you can get and just start sticking metal together. Like, I think for most things, just start doing it is the best way to get. And I mean, of course, there's things, watching, a tutorial video or two, but like you were saying earlier, like, don't get sucked too deep into that and try to make it perfect before you start. Just like get a rough idea and then just go for it. Making mistakes is the quickest way to learn sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. What about some specific skill sets that you would recommend somebody developing or working on before they got, or while they get into fabricating?
I mean, obviously welding is like the most key skill to fabricating, really. But I don't know. I think like I was saying earlier, like having other skills that are related or not particularly related, but in other trades also can translate, just having an understanding of how to put things together, even if those things are wood or plastic or whatever, can help, So like if you're thinking about getting into fabricating and you're already in one of those trades, like it may be worth more than you think. Mm-hmm. Also, I mean, I think something that I have been very behind on as a skill is computer design. But it's these days, there's just so many options for how to utilize that. And they're so good. I mean, I wish I'd had a plasma cutter 5 years ago when we started. Obviously that, I got to where I am how I did, but having that is just, it's an enormous asset. And that's probably something that if you really wanted to get into fabricating is fairly essential, is being able to design stuff on a computer. I mean, if you want to get to a high level of it, and that's also something that's got a pretty low barrier of entry to kind of practice and learn with is, I mean, if you have a computer, there's plenty of free options for free trials, at least for design software, and pretty much everyone has a computer. So, if you don't have access to any of the physical stuff, that's certainly something you could start teaching yourself is designing stuff on a computer.
And even the arc droid, all you got to do, you just got to trace out your cardboard.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, that is one way to do it. And that's interestingly, I essentially never use that feature aside from to cut out like circles, because it just has a button you click, draws a circle, and you cut it out. I use that sometimes because it's simpler than going to the computer, but the actual trace feature, I haven't used it basically since I got it, but it is what convinced me to get it. I mean, because if you don't have if you've never done CAD, it just seems very intimidating to have to design it all on a computer and then tell the machine how to cut it and all of that. But the ArcDroid really lowers that barrier of entry in terms of skills, because you can just get it and just draw a shape on a piece of cardboard and then trace it with the computer and cut it out. So yeah, I guess you don't have to know CAD, but it definitely helps.
And it's going to take some time to develop those CAD skills, because I usually plan all my own projects on AutoCAD in the 2D, and then I was introduced to Fusion and started playing around with that whole 3D, that third dimension. I think because I'm not using it every day, but it just, I couldn't figure it out, and I just kept getting frustrated, because you have to have hours upon hours with this, and being willing that you're going to be making a lot of mistakes, and you're not just going to get it overnight. But that, right. I mean, there's, like you were saying, there's so many softwares out there in CAD design that you can. I don't know. It's really cool to see technology, and then the ArcDroid, in another 5 or 10 years, it's kind of interesting to see the technology in the trades and these unique things to help people solve their problems.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And not just plasma, but you've got 3D printing, which now there's metal 3D printing, and not that that's attainable as a machine you could have, but there's companies that'll do it for you, and, laser and water jet and CNC milling, and there's just so many, these days, if you can design it yourself, you can have it built by somebody else, or cut out, or, have the part made. So yeah, it's really cool to see how much more accessible all of that stuff is getting. Cause I mean, even when we were all kids, that wasn't a thing at all. You just did not have access to that kind of stuff.
I didn't even know that was possible.
Right. Yeah. I mean, 3D printing didn't exist when, I don't know how old you guys are. I assume pretty close to the same as I am. I'm 32, but
I'm 37 and you're what
36.
36.
Yeah. So same range. When we were kids, the 3D printing hadn't even been invented, and CNC stuff was barely existed, and no one like us knew about it. It was all just in a factory.
3D printing
somewhere.
was like Jetsons stuff.
Yeah.
Hey,
right? Yeah,
you push a button and
it was sci-fi.
Ding! Oh, there's my thing that I wanted. Mostly food, but
we are living in the future. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
crazy.
So you're saying that I remember the first time I heard about 3D printing, I was like, "That's insane!" Oh my gosh! And then now I have one. It's and they're like $200 on Amazon.
Yeah, right. Now everybody has one. Yeah.
And
well, I still don't somehow, but.
Oh, that would be you should get one. It'd be cool. Well, you should probably get a metal one.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Hey, that'd be sweet. Could you imagine just making parts and designing a part that you need, a one-off for your specific build that you could fab out of, make blocky or whatever, but you could just mold it or cast it in this. Oh,
well, now there's there's the modeling, the 3D guns that you can scan and print from. Yep. It's crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing, how accessible all of that stuff is now. It's really cool.
Before we get to our last question, I just wanted to go back to something you said about your formal education or lack of formal education, and I want you to know that I think that's really cool that you. I think it's cool that you don't have that personally.
Thank you.
Because I think that you've first of all, look where you are and what you're doing and the life you've built for yourself. And I just want to commend you in that, because I think there's a lot of pressure nowadays for people to go for sure to university, but also to get, a formal ticket or, those titles are very, it can limit how someone, views themselves depending on their self-confidence or their abilities, or it could play into that imposter syndrome or that type of stuff. But that whole master of, what is it? What is that? How's that saying go?
Jack of
all trades, master of none,
yeah.
And then it's better than being a master of one or whatever. Yeah. It's
something like that, yeah.
But you're I would love to have a fraction of the skills that you have, right? And I just wanted to say that, because I think I think it's more common people being in your situation, and knowing that someone such as yourself has gone down that path and has all these skills and built up all this stuff, all these skills, that it encourages me, because I don't have, right now, I'm a welding fabrication teacher at a high school, and Hoff here is a woodshop teacher at a high school. and I don't have my welding journeyman. And I went to tech school and I dabbled in automotive and I dabbled in welding and fabrication for a little bit. And I dabbled in some other areas, some computer stuff. And I've always beat myself up for not having that, because Hoff here has his journeyman. Not comparing myself, but there's the journeyman, and then I'm just some deadbeat.
Yeah, but you can be well rounded in like yourself in a multitude of trades or skill sets that sometimes I think can even be more effective or efficient than somebody who's just focused on one thing for 15 or 20 years. You're relying on I don't know.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So it's like you have. Not just like right now, but throughout your, since I've seen you guys on YouTube, have really inspired me with that, in being able to be like, you know what? No, I do have skills and I don't need this piece of paper on the wall. Although that would help. Like, I'm apprenticing right now to get my welding ticket so that I can, teach welding better and know all the processes and that kind of thing. But it's really cool that you kind of, that was your journey. And I just wanted to affirm you in that. It's really cool to hear.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's, I've always been of the opinion that, a formal education isn't necessary. I think it's extremely valuable and in other ways too. Like, for me, what was most valuable about going to college was not the degree. It was, expanding my mind in other ways and the social aspect of it, because I was fairly isolated. And so, like, I think that education is extremely valuable, but it's certainly not necessary to attain any particular goal, or to get any particular job. Like, some jobs are going to require certain things, but it doesn't. I agree that I don't think it's as necessary as some people make it seem to have a formal education in something, And
it's really cool to see someone like yourself thriving and being a good role model, I guess, for people who, are in the same boat or have chosen to just go here or there and just be passionate about certain things and not necessarily pay $40,000 to get a piece of paper on the wall like I did. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's really cool. It's really cool. Sure.
So last question here, Ethan. Top 3 starting out tools for getting into fabrication or into building fun shit.
Right. Obviously a welder, because it's pretty hard to stick metal together without a welder. But that might not be first, because you can bolt stuff together. So, it's hard to beat an angle grinder for versatility.
Yeah.
And then obviously, so angle grinder, welder, drill, I guess, drill press, ideally. With those 3 things, that's basically all I had when we started this. And I built a couple of things with just that. Tubing bender, obviously, but that's later on. You don't have to bend tubes to start with. Those, I think, angle grinder, drill, welder. You can accomplish a lot with that if you're willing to spend a lot of time and be a little bit creative.
Yeah,
I think a junkyard wars would be cool with limited tools.
Yeah,
right. You bring people together.
Right.
Okay, you've got a welder, grinder, and drill press. Here you go, make it. Right.
Sorry, ESAB, you can't sponsor this one. This is just a grinder. You go to like Harbor Freight and get like a grinder,
just the cheap stuff. Yeah,
a crappy drill. Or no, they'd have to go to like. Sorry, my brain's going like crazy. You have to go like on Marketplace and buy some like old tools.
Used tools, yeah.
Here's the $1,000
yard sale.
Yeah, $1,000 starting out budget.
Yeah.
You got 2 weeks to find your tools and build. Oh,
thousands a little.
Yeah, you could get a lot of used tools for $1,000.
You find some estate sale somewhere. Oh man. Well, Ethan, this has been so much fun. It's been an honor having you on the show. Before we let you go, is there what's next? What's next for Grindhard Plumbing Co.? What's next for you? Is there anything you want to share, promote?
Obviously the next big thing is the shop. And until that's done, I'm not sure exactly what the next, build or whatever is. But the goal is with the new shop to have space to, build more things, work on some of the bigger projects that we've sort of been putting off. And then also one of my goals for having the new shop is a space for friends to also work on their stuff. I mean, friends who are in YouTube, outside of YouTube, whatever, just as a collaborative space, because for me, that's always what's the most fun about it, about, you know, I don't know, really anything, but especially building cars and stuff, is hanging out and working with your friends and, you know, helping them with their project and whatever. So, yeah, so the new shop is obviously the next big thing, and then lots of other more exciting things to come, I guess.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it. And as we end off here, where can people find you if they have, like I said before, have been living under a rock for the last 5 years?
I mean, you know, our name is Grind Hard Plumbing Co. on every platform. We're on, you know, Facebook. Obviously, YouTube is the primary one, but we've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You know, pretty much all of those. So yeah, that's whichever your platform is your favorite, you can find us there under Grind Hard Plumbing Co.
Love it.
Or, you know, as I tell people that I meet randomly, because I know they'll probably forget the name, just Google Barbie Jeep and you'll probably get there.
That'll stick out. Yeah.
Keywords, eh?
It's all about that SEO.
Yeah.
Well, Ethan, thank you so much. Like I said before, it's been an honor having you on. Hoff and I speak for you.
Yeah.
Big fans of what you're doing, and it's just been a pleasure having you on the show. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for everyone for listening. We'll put all the links to Grind Hard Plumbing Co. That Ethan mentioned in the description of this episode. Check them out. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Hoff.
Thanks, Rosie.
And we'll catch everyone in the next one.